We begin in the name of the God whose mercy is profound, whose kindness is forever. In the series of Why Islam, I am now beginning a new module. The module is What is Deen? And the first of the presentations in this module is regarding questions: what is Deen? Where do we get it from? What does it constitute? And what is its purpose? First thing first, Deen is the message which the Almighty sent to the mankind through His chosen representative humans called prophets, some of whom were messengers as well. Prophets have been described as Nabi, Anbiya, the plural, and messengers are described in the Quran as Rasul. Rusul is their plural. The message that they all brought was the same. The name of the message is Islam. So this message is what is now meant for the entire humankind to consider, for them to be able to understand the purpose of their life, and for them to be able to come close to God and also make this present life and the next life, which is going to be eternal, good, successful. There are three important questions regarding Deen. Where do we get it from? Number one, what does it constitute? Number two, and what is its purpose? Number three. All these three questions have been answered by the Quran in one verse. So you can imagine how important that verse must be. So not surprisingly, this verse is found in the Quran in 4 different passages. Twice it appears in Surah Al-Baqarah, the 2nd chapter. Once it appears in Surah Al-Imran, the 3rd chapter. And it appears once in the 62nd chapter, Surah Al-Jumu'ah. I will mention what's there in Surah Al-Jumu'ah. All these passages talk about the same fact, the same description, with slightly different wordings. In Surah Al-Jumu'ah, the Almighty says, هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ. He is the one, that is God, who sent amongst the unlettered Arabs, رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ, a messenger from amongst them. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ. He recites before them His verses, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and does their tazkiyah, purifies them, وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ, and He teaches them Al-Kitab and Al-Hikmah. وَإِنْ كَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ, even though before that, لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ, they were in clear misguidance. If we look at this verse a little more closely, we would find that all these 3 important questions that I had mentioned have been answered briefly but clearly in this verse. The first question, where do we get God's message from? وَالَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُ. It is the messenger of God, the representative of God, who delivers God's message. So, whenever we are interested in knowing what God wants us to do, what God's expectations from us are, we've got to look for only one source, and that is God's prophets, God's messengers. The last of whom was Muhammad, God's mercy be on him. So now all humans have one thing to do to be able to know what God's will is, to find out what the message of God has been delivered by the messenger of God. The second question is, what does this message constitute? What does it say? What are its important constituents? The verse tells us that this message is comprised of two important components, Al-Kitab and Al-Hikmah. Let's take Al-Hikmah first. Al-Hikmah, according to the Quran, is in turn comprised of two components. One is the moral principles, the ethical understanding that the entire humanity shares, universal morality which every human knows by birth a priori. We are supposed to tell the truth. We have to refrain from telling lies. We're not supposed to cause harm to others. We are expected to be good to others. We've got to be very kind to our parents. We've got to not be indulged in corruption, in being unfair, etc., etc. There is a long list of do's and don'ts which the entire humanity, no matter where humans live, whatever part of this world, whatever part of human history they lived in this world, they all have one understanding by and large of what is right and what is wrong. The Quran tells us the message of God reminds us about it. That is why the Quran calls itself a reminder. You are reminded of something that you already know. So these moral principles are a reminder. But Al-Hikmah also includes beliefs. Belief in God, belief in life hereafter, and belief in prophets, divine revelation, and the books. What is the relationship between the two? Why is it that Al-Hikmah comprises of both moral principles as well as beliefs? The reason is that the beliefs that the Almighty wants us to confirm are the only acceptable explanation, justification of moral principles. So, one question that arises when we have the understanding of moral principles is, where have they come from? Why is it that every human being has the same set of principles? The answer is God. There is only one God. He is the only designer, and therefore don't be surprised that when He designed humans, He made them the same as far as moral appreciation is concerned. The second question, okay, but why these moral principles? Why this understanding and appreciation of morality? It makes life difficult. I mean, you can't tell lies, even though telling lies might help, might be beneficial. And there are so many moral principles which are very difficult to follow. And life becomes really difficult if you follow them. The answer is the life hereafter. That is, this life is only a test. We are being tested for our attachment with moral principles. How much we value them, how seriously we take them. And in the process, if we are called upon to make sacrifices and not benefit from this worldly life quite as much as we would have otherwise done, the life hereafter is going to adequately compensate for whatever we are going to lose. The third question is, where do we get this confirmation from? Well, we get this confirmation from the divine revelation, from the teachings of the prophets, from what the books of God say. So that's what is Al-Hikmah. Moral principles and beliefs. What is Al-Kitab? Al-Kitab is the law, the Sharia. How is it different from moral principles? Well, moral principles are known to everyone. We only need to be reminded of them. But there are certain aspects of moral principles wherein humans tend to get confused. There are certain important questions that arrive in the domain of morality which are not possible to be properly, clearly, definitely answered by our intellect. So God has come to our rescue and has been kind in enabling us to know that the kind of problems that we are confronting in understanding moral principles, these are the answers in some of the problems that we are confronting. Those answers are given in the form of Sharia. To give you an example, we all humans know that if we are to enter the field of business, trading, we have to be morally upright. We are not allowed to fool others, tell lies, make promises which we do not follow, do not abide by. We have to advertise product in accordance with what the reality is, and so on and so forth. So, in almost all business schools of the present times, there is a subject called business ethics which is taught. And the reason is that humans, by and large, agree that there are certain ethical principles, standards, which all businesses are expected to follow. However, there is a question which is not properly answered by the human understanding of ethics. And that is that if a person lends an amount to another person and binds the borrower that he must return to him the original principal value of what he had lent him, but he must also return a definite predetermined increment called interest, come what may. Whether the borrower has run into losses, his business has suffered difficulties and is not able to make revenues, the lender is adamant. He says, my contract binds you to return the full value of what I gave you, and in addition, an additional increment as well. There are people who would say that there's nothing wrong with it. There are others who would say that it's unfair, and there would be a debate. God in His Sharia, in His law, has clearly mentioned that it is wrong, it's unacceptable, it's unfair. And there are other examples of how Al-Kitab, the law, along with the moral principles, enable humans to move to a higher level of moral understanding and appreciation and be able to lead a life which is morally upright. Now, after having been introduced briefly to the two important components of Deen, Al-Kitab and Al-Hikmah, the final question that arises is, what is the purpose of Deen? Why has it been given? And the answer is that the purpose of religion is tazkiyah, which is another term that has been used in this verse. What is tazkiyah? Tazkiyah is primarily two end results. One is purification and the other is progress, development. We humans have been given a tremendous potential to become morally upright. We have been endowed with, by the Almighty, the potential to come very close to God. In other words, as humans, we've got a great potential to be both morally upright and to be spiritually close to God. And that's what the purpose of this life is, that we reach the higher levels of excellence both in morality and spirituality. The trouble is that there are obstacles, impediments, our desires, the glamour of this worldly life attracting us towards evil, our ego. God's religion, by teaching us both Al-Kitab and Al-Hikmah, by teaching us moral principles, reminding us about the beliefs, and giving us the law which further supports the moral principles, enables us to purify ourselves. So, when we follow God's religion properly in the right spirit, we are purified. Religion is all about purification. Purification of our body, purification of our edibles, what we eat and drink, and most importantly, purification of our morality, of our morals. So, that's what the target of religion is. When we get purified, the obstacles and impediments that threaten to prevent us from becoming morally upright and spiritually close to God, those hurdles are removed. And as a consequence, our potential is properly realized. The potential of coming close to God, the potential of becoming excellent, morally upright humans. And that's what religion aims to achieve. So, God's religion has come to make humans people who have gone through the process of tazkiyah. The Almighty has decided that after this life, there would come another life. The life of rewards and punishment. The life that is going to decide what kind of performance was given by humans. This life of ours is a life of trial. So, the ultimate success is going to be announced about humans on the Day of Judgment. Many people are going to be declared as successful and therefore destined for the paradise. Others would be doomed and will be declared as failures and would be consigned to the hell. For an individual to be able to achieve the success of the paradise, the Quran clearly mentions that there is a minimum level of tazkiyah, of purification of the self and moral as well as spiritual excellence that needs to be achieved. That excellence, that level of tazkiyah is achieved through following God's religion properly. In other words, Deen, the message that the Almighty has given to mankind through the prophets, has come to enable humans to become truly successful in the next life, the eternal life of the paradise. For that purpose, the message that they have given us is comprised of the law, Al-Kitab and Al-Hikmah, morality, moral principles, and beliefs. When we take this message seriously, we follow it properly. On the one hand, we are purified from inside, and on the other hand, as a consequence of that purification, we are able to achieve both moral and spiritual excellence, and that is what is going to enable us humans to be declared eligible to enter the eternal world of paradise.